So I'm going to get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I will just share my screen, just again, like to kick it off. This is our welcome to our AI Roundtable discussion. This is our second roundtable. And we are, it's the first time we did the first one and thought we'd come up on this. Let's try doing this again. And it's funny how things, a rolling stone gathers no moss. I mean, we've now gotten, we're actually completely booked up for the third one. We had a lot of response for the second one. So the point I guess I took away from that was that clearly this is a subject that I think of mid and small size institutions, credit unions, community banks are struggling with, or at least want to talk about or engage on. And so we intend to have these a lot more frequently and try to kind of build a community around the AI in banking or AI in credit union space. So that I'll jump right in. Just a quick agenda. We do have quite a few folks on the line. Unfortunately, if you're in remote, you get one introduction. It'll be hard to manage if you have a lot of folks in the room, but we'll give you a chance just to kind of introduce the organization. We'll do very, very quick introductions just to get the conversation flowing. And then the agenda really steps into a little bit around AI readiness. So when I talk about AI readiness, I have all the set of questions here if I ever need them, but we're talking about sort of how your organization is preparing for it. What is your mindset towards that? That's the kind of conversations when it comes to AI readiness. We'll then talk a little bit about AI and future AI initiatives. So again, current and future AI initiatives. So what are you doing today? Have you started something? What are the projects? Does your organization use it? I know there's a lot of tools out there. So how are you using some of those? And then we'll get a little bit into building versus buying, because previously it was all buying. That seems to have evolved a little bit too. So again, talk about how the industry is changing, and then we'll open the floor to any closing thoughts. That will take us the whole hour, but if there's any questions or Q&A, we'll make it as interactive as possible. I will be moderating it. So I've been in banking, financial services. Just to give you all a quick background on who I am. Um, Over 25 years at this point. I've done work in the banking space at large institutions. I was in Richmond. In fact, we were talking about this a little earlier at Capital One. Subsequent to that, actually for the last 12, 13 years or so, it's been exclusively with credit unions. So have got both sides of it. I've got the banking perspective, large and small institution size as well. Bring that kind of experience to it. And over the years, we started off, got into the space about 12 years ago, like I said, after payments, got into big data, then got into an organization where we led predictive analytics. And today we're talking about AI. So just to give you a perspective, it's all been sort of what I think is cutting edge and moving and evolving in the technology space. Some basic general guidelines, sort of ground rules, as I call it. Speak freely, listen fully. Let everybody finish their thought. We don't want to interrupt. Time is valuable, so I do ask that if we say you're going to take a minute, please try to keep it to a minute. Be concise. We don't want the conversation to sort of get lost. And we asked this because the idea of this is to make it a round table type format. So as much as you can, or as long as you can, if you can, to keep your camera on. This presentation I know is up there right now. We will not have a presentation. This will be discussions, but rather than, it's easy for me to call on someone because we have some questions. I want to hear your thoughts. But if you have your camera on, then we can see you and engage with you a little bit differently. So I would appreciate if you can. I know Terry, you already said you can't, but anybody else, if you can have your cameras on, it really does help. And then just the last couple of things is we are recording the session. We will record and share this with everybody after it's done within a day or so. And we do share a list of attendees in that too. So, everybody's LinkedIn profiles. If you do not want it, just drop me a note after this, or drop Rupika, who's our coordinator, a note after this, and just let them know that, I don't want my LinkedIn. But everybody here does know your name, does know who you are. So, and I also will have your introduction. So, if you want to opt out, just drop me a note and let me know, and we will do that. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in and we'll get started. Oh, I see some cameras. I had the screen up, so I couldn't see anybody's faces. I appreciate everybody being on there. Thank you very much. So we'll jump into introductions. Ben, do you mind just give me a quick intro? We'll take a minute. Everybody gets about a minute for the introductions. Ben, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Karan. Appreciate you hosting the roundtable. Excited to hear everyone's thoughts on the topic. My name is Ben Rempe. I'm a fractional consultant for financial institutions and growth stage startups. I've been working with banks and credit unions for my entire career. And my last couple of gigs have been working with or helping start a startup that was started with 3 people. We took it to 75. It was a widget that connected products in the lending industry to help close mortgage loans faster. So excited to learn more about AI and how you guys are applying it to your businesses. Thanks, Karan.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Joel, do you mind if pass it to you?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joel Karczewski. I'm the CTO of Excalibur Capital. It's a commercial real estate lending firm. Very, very large real estate transactions into the hundreds of millions, and very long and manual processes and workflows that get us from point A to point B. We're looking at AI to speed up the underwriting process. We're also looking at AI to speed up the origination process. And we've got some great ideas and long-term projects, but immediately we're rolling AI out utilizing Copilot across and integrated across the Microsoft products, and creating company people are instructed to create reusable prompts that then can be rolled out into a prompt catalog.
Very nice. Yeah. Jason? And feel free to stay unmuted as long as you're not disrupting. You don't have to mute and unmute. So
Jason Hughes, I'm at Lake Trust Credit Union in Michigan. I'm on the innovation team, and yeah, looking at how we can use different AI platforms to increase member satisfaction and member well-being.
That's interesting. It's the first credit union that I've heard of that has an innovation center or department. That's nice to hear. Thank you. David?
Hi, folks. My name is David Francis. I'm the Chief Credit Officer of Capital Community Bank. We're a Utah-based community bank. I've been in banking for 40 plus years. I started when I was about 6 years old. My institution's preparing for AI. They are asking me to obtain a dual PhD in AI and machine learning, and my research is focusing on AI in commercial and consumer lending with an emphasis on agentic AI, risk modeling, and fair lending compliance.
Wow. I do have some interesting questions, I think, for you as well. Larry?
Yeah, hi, I'm Larry Hall. I'm out of the Chicago area. I am brand new to Remedy Consulting, just starting there. I know one of the things we're interested in is trying to figure out how to use AI to improve the business services we provide to our financial institution customers. But I just came off of about 6 years, I think, as a full-time employee. I'm still on the advisory board of a company called Finlytica Corporation that provides AI, advanced analytics, and data consulting and solutions to community banking institutions.
Thank you. Judson?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Judson Murray. I'm an analyst here at AI Advantage on the product team, and I'm also a current graduate student at the University of Central Florida. I'm pursuing my master's in data analytics. And most of my work is more technical, on the technical side for implementing AI and actually building models. But I'm really, really curious to hear a lot of the input today to see how different organizations are utilizing AI.
Yeah, and I'll ask the two folks that are on camera. Terry, do you want to introduce real quick you and
Chris is going to do the introduction.
Yeah, we're Chris and Terry from RBA Financial Credit Union. We are already using AI in our production environments for underwriting with Zest AI. We've been using robot process automation through a robot through our core to do a number of automated reports, and we're looking to add more of that type of process automation with Copilot. We just brought Copilot in-house recently. It's been about 2 months. We've written policies and user acceptance to make sure that they're doing the right things and not writing man-in-the-middle attacks and all other stuff that they could do with a tool like that. But the biggest things that we've done have been the Zest AI, and we also use managed detection and response, which has an AI element in it for detecting ransomware and that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. And Stephen?
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve Kaminsky. I also work at Lake Trust Credit Union. I didn't know my great coworker Jason's not on the call. Good to see him. my take on it is more or less dipping my toes in the water for working on internal communications and employee engagement activities that might be able to be uh, harnessed or improved, and we'll also help out with some of our community development activities. So you never know if we'll run across somebody we've been partnering with that might be able to glean some information to help them out. So just kind of like trying to sit back and soak up some stuff that's a new topic for me.
Oh, lovely. And I might, if I have questions that sort of apply a little bit more to Lake Trust, I might just kind of, toggle them between you and Jason a bit there too. Looks like we've got, Michael just dropped. I was going to ask him to introduce himself too. So I'll jump right in. And I guess my first question really is around, and like I said, some of the questions I have sort of pre-targeted just for thinking about what might fit, but it's an open conversation around it. So feel free to raise your hand. I know there's a little raise hand option there that allows you to be called out and actually talk about it. So what I am curious about, and David, I'll start with you. I mean, as far as aggressiveness or what is your organization's mindset towards using AI today? I mean, are you all as an institution, as a community bank, I know you said you're starting to do things. You're clearly, you've got the risk modeling experience. Have you been the one driving that initiative, and how's it been taken? Because we get mixed sort of reviews about how AI is being treated across organizations now.
So we are somewhat of a unicorn community bank. 60 to 70% of our revenue is generated through our fintech products.
Okay.
And those are primarily consumer based. Utah doesn't have usury laws, so we can charge interest up to, in many cases, 300%. All of our risk models, all of our credit models are machine learning based on that side.
Yeah.
We are very tech focused. If I need to spend $1 million on AI, that's my decision solely. But we are aggressively speeding forward with our AI initiatives.
Very interesting. Just as a side note, one of our largest clients is a bank out of Minneapolis that is heavily focused in the fintech space as well. Fintech, multi-billion-dollar institution there too.
And we have a current initiative that we're calling Lending 2.0, where we are designing a loan origination system that is heavily based on agentic AI.
Yeah.
And we're also implementing a couple side projects that use a vast array of small and tiny language models to handle specific tasks for evaluation of new and existing fintech partners.
Interesting. So Larry, let me just ask you a question. And you're in the consultative space, you said relatively new, but you've been on the sort of the board advisory side of things too. What do you, and you said you're looking at AI for business consulting. What are you seeing as some of the hurdles that organizations have when you're going out and talking? Is that an offering that you offer today, or is it something that you're trying to look to embed into your solution suite? And what are you running into when you're trying to talk to institutions about that?
Yeah, so as far as Remedy is concerned, it would be, in my mind, and this is brand new, so I can't say everyone in the company shares the same view, wouldn't even know that yet, but it's to embed the capabilities in the service offerings that we offer. I will say in my advisory side, which was a full-time job, right, up to just being on the advisory board, the solutions we provided, I think there were a couple of things that kept people, just sort of uncertainty about how they would use AI, what it would mean for them, what it would mean for their organization. Some legitimate concern about the cost and the complexity of getting involved into it. And then the whole data side of things was a barrier to entry for a lot of these financial institutions because they just didn't know where their data was, wasn't in any kind of shape to be used. So there are a number of hurdles to be overcome then. But I would say, getting back to Remedy, it is, to answer your question, looking for ways to embed AI capabilities into our service offering, just to make them more valuable, frankly, for our clients.
Yeah. Joel, just picking on you, I know you said that you're a large organization, large transactions, said you're looking at AI. Maybe expand on a little bit that, because you did touch on that a little bit in your introduction too. Maybe expanding just a little bit as far as, what are some of the external factors, or what are the factors that are driving Excalibur's interest in AI?
I think the factors that are driving us are we need to be prepared to scale and grow for the future. And we've got a lot of people involved with manual processes, sifting through reams and reams of data when trying to make decisions regarding whether it's a go forward or a showstopper regarding a complex financial transaction. So we're utilizing AI in the legal space to analyze all the documents, to make sure that clauses and key terms are consistent at the state level and the federal level, and they conform and comply to the latest rules and regulations. We're making sure that the upwards of 45 to 50 contracts are involved in the mix for one single transaction. So making sure that if one of those contracts or the terms in one of those is modified, that the others are consistent as we're moving down the timeline and the process from origination to approval. I think someone else brought this up. I think one of our challenges is making sure we're choosing the right data sets up front where we're going to tap into. And it's been difficult dealing with some of the large vendors, Bloomberg, for example, in getting the data wrestled free from their Bloomberg terminals and into our databases so that we can put the logic and the correct prompts in place that we need to be successful. So we're based in New York, but we pretty much are domestic across the U.S. in the transactions that we handle.
That's good. I might ask, as we get into sort of examples and expanding on that, just to dive a little bit deeper into one, sort of how you went about doing that. How did you go about the selection? Not right now, but I'll come back to that. We can dive into sort of the selection process. What made you think about this particular prioritization, and how because that's the other thing. It's such a fast-moving space right now. I joke I live in Northern Virginia, so it's funnier in our circle there. We say it's like the government right now. You just don't know what's coming next. The next day, it's evolving really fast. On the flip side of it, I think with given enough time, it's starting to look a little bit more predictable too. So we are starting to see a little bit more of a trend when it comes to AI there too. Jason, just picking on you at your credit union, what's the mindset like? What are you all thinking about when it comes to AI? I ran into a credit union very recently. That was like, we are just holding off right now. We're not thinking anything out. We've got enough tools that our hands are full. I'm just curious about what your thought process is and how's Lake Trust handling that.
Yeah, we're moving forward with some AI. We also had multiple discussions with our board of directors, and leadership is in the process of creating an AI roadmap and AI guardrails and rules of engagement around how we'll be implementing AI. One solution that's been I don't know where it is at in the go live, or if it's already gone live, or if it's still in its implementation phase, but Rembrandt AI for fraud detection is something that we've contracted with.
Yeah.
We're also we've demoed with Copilot across the Microsoft suite. We've got a predictive analytics platform from Alchemy that is intended to really clean up our data and use it for actionable marketing, and also some AI-powered algorithms to try to detect members that are likely to leave the credit union, or suggest next best product to upsell those members to another product, increasing their household products. So we have some things cooking, but still a lot more on the horizon.
So kind of shifting into the next part of the conversation is, are we starting to see some of the ongoing or planned initiatives? I'm just curious to know about from the multiple that you have. And I'll come over to RVA just after this, but Jason is continuing on you. Do you have any successes? Because that's quite a few initiatives you have underway already that are in some form or the other. Rembrandt, you talked about, in marketing analytics, and just all of this. So have you seen, is it too early? Are you at the point of starting to see the ROI?
It's too early. Like we're still in the onboarding phase with Alchemy, so that's still in process. Then we have to integrate it into a marketing automation system to really start taking advantage of that. So yeah, still too early to really have an ROI.
Okay, I might come back to you just because I've got a very we are building our product is a hyper personalization product. Essentially, you feed it all the data, and it'll create unique emails, SMSs that'll go out to everybody individually. That sort of make it a lot more personalized to them as opposed to standard. So I'm very interested, sort of how some of these other products might fit in. Terry
Yeah,
and
so
Chris, I
we
noticed you're
are,
unmuted there. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I'm sorry to
Go
interrupt
ahead,
you.
David. No
We
worries.
have one AI product in production right now. So I mentioned our fintech business. We generate, let's call it $1.5 billion a year in small dollar consumer loans.
Mhm.
And one product that we put in place was transaction testing, fraud testing, BSA, KYC, AML compliance to identify bad actors and fraudsters. And we have that product in place right now, and it is probably identified with the two fintechs that are fully in production, easily 10 million in potential fraud that we would not have identified otherwise.
So David, I'll come back to that because I think that maybe some further conversation just from Rembrandt and how that might work together. I want to pass it to Terry real quick. Terry and Chris, do you want to talk? Because y'all are using a lot. I mean, you mentioned Zest, you mentioned a few others. These are some obviously the active players in the credit union world. Maybe he's talking a little bit about how y'all are using them and how this came to be, because that's and maybe a little bit about the size of the credit union too, because that helps in understanding. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
we're
go
pretty
ahead.
small. We're pretty small. We do a lot with technology and our endeavors with Zest have been to create one-click underwriting, so that if they have a certain credit score, our underwriters don't even look at it; it goes straight to approval, and it moves on to the next phase, which be paying on the loan.
Well, with the Zest, I'm pretty sure that y'all are aware of Zest. It really takes the human side out of it on our underwriter side to keep it in compliance. So that the machine is making the decision, but the machine is also learning. And we're constantly meeting with Zest to make changes to enhance our lending so we can also end up doing more loans. And because we're taking that human factor out of the lending.
Yeah.
Because we're also looking at the fair lending. That was one of the reasons why we decided to go with Zest, because Zest is making the decisions based on our criteria, but also evolving with the AI part of it. Because we are a small credit union, but we do we have technology. All of our branch is run by all ITMs. We don't have teller lines. We put in ITMs with active video teller back during COVID. So we try to do pretty much everything through machines, but still having the human side of it.
But it sounds like, I mean,
biggest...
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds like just in general with the size of the credit union, you all are using technology a lot more. For everybody's benefit, Zest AI is an organization that serves mid and small size financial institutions and enhances their underwriting process. So kind of fits right into making quicker, faster, like Terry mentioned, takes the manual part out of, say, auto decision or easy to decision loans, and does more than that. I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but it does a little bit of that. Ben, I want to just pick on you for a second. I know you're in the fractional space as a consultant of sort. What are you seeing as you go out in terms of talking to organizations, or what is your experience with AI coming in from the outside?
Yeah, it's interesting. I work with a lot of credit unions that I would say are small to mid-size, and they're still at the very beginning and early stages where they've been given the marching orders to start to explore AI, but haven't really gotten there yet. And so it's interesting to see what they're thinking about, because a lot of them are saying, well, we're going to lean into whatever our core provider is showing. And a lot of times that's just, an agent that they're going to put onto a website. So their idea of AI is just a bot that they'll put up that will chat with the member when they go online. So it's been interesting starting there with them and then showing them that, yeah, there are other solutions, whether it's, there's a company that is doing using AI to do QA in the mortgage process, so they can scan the documents and make sure it meets conditions. And you take a person out of the process and save money. And yeah, there's an expense to it, but in the long run, you're saving money and speeding up the process on the backside. And just trying to get them to open up their minds to, hey, there are much wider applications of AI besides just a chatbot. It's not just you're going on to Copilot and talking to the machine. There's a lot that it can do.
I appreciate that. And David, I did see your question. Believe it or not, before we started, Judson and I were talking about, and that was his question to me. Very similar. I think you put it slightly differently as far as the black box or getting auditors or regulators comply with that. And we'll come back to that perhaps in the second half of in the last 20 minutes or so. I see we did have Judy join. Judy, I want to give you a minute just to quickly introduce yourself. If you can unmute yourself and just introduce and give us a little bit of background to who you are and who you represent here.
Hi, sorry I was late. I had some members in my office. We're very small, so but I'm with Northern Kentucky Federal Credit Union, and I just kind of wanted to hear what everybody was doing with AI nowadays and to see if there was something that could help our credit union grow, because we're always looking for something that'll help us thrive. So that's why I jumped on. I was like, I wanted to hear this.
Well, and I appreciate.
I'm
Let me
the
ask you. You
CEO
said
here,
a small
so.
credit union, so you bring Ben probably a little bit of what you talked about. Minutes, have you faced any challenges with things like, and you can say yes to all of them and just expand on that, budget or internal expertise or and Larry, kind of like what you said, data readiness. So have you faced any of these
Yes.
challenges, or what are you doing with that today?
Well, we're pretty much where Ben said. We're not really doing a lot. We are in the middle. We just signed a contract to switch core processors, and so that's taken up a lot of time right now. But we have in our strategic plan to start, like doing the marketing for, more personalized marketing, with the data analytics and all of that. And then I am looking for, expertise, like you said. It would be nice to have something that could approve a loan, and I really would like it if it could also fund it for the person,
More automated processes on the back end.
Yes, yes. So if they're out there on the weekend looking at a car, they could get a loan. So yeah, I'm looking for anything that helps, honestly.
Well, let me ask. I'm going to sort of ask Joe this question. There are multiple initiatives out there, and this one, in the case of Judy, I mean, she's got, how do I spend on basic technology and continue to enhance? I'm a small organization, and then I've got the problem of everybody saying I better be AI strategic or AI ready or some capacity. And you all have multiple initiatives underway. How do you prioritize? Is it purely ROI? I mean, where is talent and you touched on data yourself too at some point. You mentioned that. So how does all of this sort of fit into that decision-making processes? How do you get to getting a successful pilot or something underway?
We looked at ROI, where would be the biggest bang for our buck and where should we start? And for us, it clearly was underwriting, but I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but organically, I'm finding that throughout the company, there are pockets and areas that are utilizing and trying to get some quick hits by utilizing some AI automation in their areas. Like, I'm uncovering Perplexity being used in one area. Our marketing area is also utilizing Alchemy. And it's just trying to get your arms around all these different initiatives and pulling them all together with an overall and overarching AI strategy, which seems to be quite a challenge.
Would it be safe to say that your organization sort of just encouraging everybody out there to say, like start dabbling with it and figure out how it might be best to use it, or is that?
Yes, I would say there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of we can do this. ourselves, and we can move forward. And I think the cat is out of the horse is out of the gate or whatever, and we're just trying to corral all these initiatives together and make sure they fit into an overall strategy, as well as making sure for the future we've identified all the areas that we want to address with AI.
Stephen, I'm going to ask you this, and maybe then I'll come back to you, Larry, just real quick. On how, because you mentioned you come from the more, I guess, the operational side of it, of the organization. What is is there training? I mean, how are you getting your teams more open across the organization? I remember we should talk about data-driven organizations, and that meant have everybody in the organization understand data and use technology a little bit differently. What are you doing from AI, or is there something going on at the credit union at Lake Trust from getting the teams on board with that?
Not from my perspective, because I'm not really in the operations thing. It's more of a, like I said, internal communications / culture and engagement, and perhaps reaching out to other nonprofits we work with, but nothing on from my perspective on an operational point of view.
Not from like an HR or broader training initiatives at this point yet.
Not at this point. Again, dipping our
Yeah.
toes in the water. It may become a great thing where I could turn to one of our folks in HR and just say, "Hey, I picked this up. Have you looked at this?" But I think right now we're just trying to smooth out our normal processes.
Larry, I'll ask you the same question. I mean, what are you seeing from that? Just when getting organizations, are the successful ones getting how do you get buy-in across the organization? How are you sort of getting everybody familiar with it? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, so if I could go back to my previous role, one of the things that we were providing was a pre-built solution. So actually, we were trying to accomplish just the opposite, frankly, to say, look, we'll set up the data, we'll set up the algorithms, we'll provide you with a solution that you just have to use. It's very much like what I heard described as alchemy before, right? Actual marketing insights and such. So we were trying to do the opposite. Now, that said, there was a need to try to get people to buy in just to the whole idea of doing something different, right? And doing something different with AI. And we try very hard to focus on the business side of things, right? Not so much on the technology, but to say, look, this is the value you're going to get from doing this. So focus on use cases and say, this is how you're doing it today versus how you could be doing it. And if you can get that to sink in, that's a starting point. I mean, then you still got to address ROI, right? Is it even worth doing? Right? Maybe the use case isn't going to generate enough revenue for it or enough value, but that's where we would start. Just focusing on the business case and convince people that this is not a threat. This is actually going to be valuable for how you do your job.
Judson, do you want to add anything to any of the topics we talked about? I know you bring let's say, I guess, a student new to the market, data scientist, a master's in data scientist perspective.
Yeah, I've heard a couple mentions of data readiness in this conversation, and making sure that we are able to get data in a proper format and get data, accessibly. I would like to hear if anybody has any issues with what data readiness means coming from an organizational executive level perspective versus a technological perspective. So do you ever find disconnect between what you expect in terms of data readiness and getting your solutions prepared versus what your team, your developers and analysts expect? And how do you sort of navigate that disconnect if there is one? Is that a personnel, you have one person whose job it is to think about, how do we take this business goal and translate it into a technical implementation? Or is that more of an organizational standard that you sort of bake into every person on your team?
It's funny, David, I was going to pick on you and then Terry after, but please, go ahead, David.
So that's a really good point. You have to kind of look at data in two formats in our industry. One is structured data and the other is unstructured data. With our currently in place AI initiative, we very much are feeding it, and it is learning off of structured data. For our underwriting AI initiative on our commercial SMB lending side, the data is very much unstructured. So you kind of have two kind of radically different perspectives that you have to take into account. And it very much kind of boils down to ultimately your use case and your application.
Chris, Terry, do you want to take a stab at that? How do you address the concept of the idea of data readiness? You're on mute, by the way. The idea of data readiness. Go ahead.
So we use the data that we get from our financial core. We use CU base as our financial core, and we have criteria that we feed to Zest for underwriting, and they create a score, and then that score is used to as part of the underwriting process for approval or non-approval for each loan. And if it goes into a non-approval status, then it is reviewed by a person to see why it get kicked out. And it could be fraud, it could be any number of things. It could have a poor score, but the data is what we have already built into our financial core that is used to through Sync One and Zest to do the underwriting.
And all Zest does is return a score. We've already given Zest our criteria as far as what we want to see in the loan, and then anything else gets referred, and so any denials get referred. So, but what we're doing is building with Zest. So we meet with them monthly, trying to improve the data that's coming back. So we've given it the data, we look at it, and we're constantly trying to evolve and get better with what the data is, the data that's being given to Zest, and we're looking to improve that process and do more through the automation, because that is the goal, I guess, with everyone with AI. And there's going to be challenges in everything we do, but we just constantly take time and review the data and how we can improve on it.
Would it be safe to say in this particular case, you're really relying on, I mean, your core is feeding the data directly into your underwriting or into the Zest models. And so at least on that side, there's probably upfront work done to make sure your core data is right and ready, rather than actually having to worry about it on the ongoing basis there.
It's definitely clean data. And plus what we also, excuse me?
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's also clean data. And what we also do is we go back and we look at it to make sure that the data is the decision that's returned, that we would have made that same decision. So we can definitely improve on the process. And so.
Before we get into just the last section of the module today, I'm going to ask everybody just real quick, if in 1 minute you can tell me what is, say, you think the best ROI you've had on an AI project, if you've had one so far. Judy, I won't pick on you because I know you're still evaluating things, but maybe I'll start with you, Jason.
Yeah, right now it's still too early to have a real ROI for the AI initiatives that we've started. The main one that pretty optimistic about seeing some ROI is the Alchemy predictive analytics implementation. And again, we're still in the onboarding phase there.
Okay. Joel?
We're kind of in the same boat. We're still in the early phases of our implementation, so we don't yet have a handle on what the projected ROI will actually bring to the company.
Ben, do you want to add something to that?
I can say that we scoped out the QA in the mortgage process, and that was going to save us a QA analyst, so one salary of about $70,000. But we didn't get to the point where we were implementing it, so hard to say if it was actually going to play out fully or not.
I guess you have the same challenge. I'm going to ask Larry the same question, but as consultants, and you're not directly sort of on that recovering the ROI side. But Larry, in terms of successful, if you think about AI project that you've been exposed to, what have you run into? And this is just, I guess, for everybody's benefit to hear about maybe some of the successful ones.
Um, yeah, so let me try to pick, because we've done in a variety of different areas. Some of them, as Ben is suggesting, are sort of efficiencies where you save a body or two, right? And you can figure that out based on what you're paying those people. Some of the other things, though, we've seen is, we've done some things like what I heard described again earlier from Alchemy with reducing customer and member turnover, where we've been able to reduce that. What I have are percentages, though, like 10, 20%. The actual dollar amounts associated with that, I don't have. So, but I will say that even those numbers are really preliminary, right? I mean, it takes a little while to get the ball rolling, so to speak. So we would look at those and say, oh, okay, that's a good start, but didn't know by the time I left, didn't really know where those were going to wind up long term. But I will say that I think the people that we worked with certainly felt optimistic, right? That they were heading in the right direction. They were just starting. I mean, most people tell you this is a journey, right? So they were just starting down the path, but they'd seen enough results to feel like, okay, it's worth continuing on the journey, so to speak, and see where we can go from there. So
What we have seen is, and I'll come to you, David, in a second, just what we have seen across the industry. By the way, our own, like we don't even consider ourselves a fintech. We consider ourselves more of a martech, which there's just a handful of that right now in this particular space. Alchemy clearly is looking like to be potentially another one, or is another one. But we are seeing chatbots is a big area where AI is being used more and more. I think like Eltropy and some of the other players are trying to do that there. Identity is one. Fraud obviously is another one that's popping up. Underwriting. And then recently I heard more about like knowledge bases. So we upload all your compliance docs in there, and then you can make it. AI will process and make it real time usable for you. So if a new customer walks in, you can instantly search through your compliance database as to how to handle these particular situations that might be, or uniqueness of that particular situation. So knowledge bases. I recently read of one which I thought blew my mind, was one that you can actually you upload all the emails, or I guess through your email server. You may not even have to upload them, but say I leave a company, it'll go through all of my communications, my OneDrive, and all of this, and will create sort of a training pack for the next person who steps into that role. So it'll basically identify what my job profile was, as well as all the things I've done. So if I've created code or I'm managing a particular software, it'll try to create a manual around my tasks. I don't know how well it works, but that's one I've heard about. So don't go out and get it yet. It's just one I read about. David, what are you seeing in terms of probably some of the best ROI that you've seen across your organization?
We take probably a longer view on ROI. We've seen it in our existing use case allow us to avoid having to hire, I think it's 2 compliance analysts, probably at 80 grand each. Yeah. So, there it's been helpful. For our lending side, we fully think that it's probably going to allow us to eliminate at least 50% of our headcount on the credit analysis side.
Wow. So I mean, you're starting to at least expect long-term cost savings in that way.
Yeah, and there's going to be some costs, some soft costs as well. Our loan officers, I wouldn't say that they're super efficient, but this is going to help them, be more effective in working with their customers. And the soft piece of it is, community banks can't generally compete with some of the larger money center banks on rates. The only thing we can compete on is speed and service. And that's, service is, subjective, right? But if we can underwrite and approve a loan faster than our competition by using agentic AI, that helps us when, a small business customer, has been talking with US Bank or Zions Bank for 6 months and still doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, we're starting to look at, I mean, that's absolutely true there. Just as I move to the last question, I want to, this is the buy versus build, and this has become more interesting to me too, because there's obviously, or a combination, because sometimes organizations have homegrown systems that you may want to embed. So there's a buy, build, or incorporate that I'm starting to hear of a little bit more when it comes to AI. So I'm just going to ask everybody this. Joel, I'll start with you. I mean, do you all, when you think of an organization, is there, again, with the size you are, you may have multiple, but what's sort of the approach typically to it when it comes to bringing AI in? Is this a let's lean out and find the best solutions out there? Is it let's go figure it out and build? What is sort of your thought process or the organization's thought process there?
I think it's a combination of both. How can we utilize existing platforms that are out there to our advantage? And then on the other side of the coin, what is it do we need to build, augment, or customize to get everything up and running? So I think it's a little bit of both.
David, I'll ask you next.
Yeah, so we've done quite a bit of environmental scanning already. We recently attended FinTech meetup in Vegas and talked to a number of providers.
Yeah.
There's two concerns. We are either looking at an out-of-the-box or off-the-shelf solution, or we're going to assemble a bunch of disparate service providers with the understanding that they all have to play nicely together. What we're hearing right now is, a lot of overpromises and questionable ability to deliver, and that's the noise that is kind of occupying a good portion of my workday, is trying to sort through that with a variety of service providers.
100% true. I think that's something that all of us can probably relate to. Judson, I'll ask you, and then Jason, I'll move to you after.
Well, I was just going to ask a question in response to that. When you talk about buying off-the-shelf products or building your own in-house model, from a technical perspective, it's always easier to just use something that's already made instead of spending a bunch of time developing a model. So what I was going to ask, what are some of the challenges or hurdles that you encounter that makes you say, okay, I think we should build this from scratch instead of using an off-the-count or an off-the-shelf approach? Like an example would be compliance and data protection. If you're going to say, I don't want to pass this data into X AI system. I want to build my own system so that I know exactly what's happening on the backside and I know exactly what data is being passed in. And I was going to say, what are the other challenges that you all have encountered that would make you stop and think hey, I don't want to use that off the shelf. I need to build my own system for this.
Yeah, Jason, do you want to take a stab at answering that? Because you have multiple projects underway as well.
Yeah, I can't really speak too much to that. I mean, what you just outlined makes sense. I mean, there's some data that you just don't want to leave your in-house systems, and you don't want it floating around out there. Other data, which is less sensitive, that can impact decisioning, sure, share that with third parties and, just reduce the risk of having any really sensitive stuff leave our internal systems. In regards to the original question around buy versus build.
Build versus buy, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that, right now we're more on the buy side. We're looking at vendors, we're considering the benefits, what's the cost. But we've also engaged with some professors of computer science at Michigan State University and trying to engage with the higher education system in the state of Michigan and try to figure out, is there opportunities to consult with us, figure out how we can build something with some outside assistance, and what does that look like from a cost perspective and what the benefit is.
Yeah, and Terry and Chris, do you want to take a stab at that too? Build versus buy, or maybe even a Judson's question there around how do you even make that decision?
So we're definitely on the buy side because we're so small. We don't have the capacity to add expertise to build agents and things like that. Now we do work with some really good vendors that would look at potentially adding like data libraries and adding analytics with AI in them. But overall, that is our approach currently.
Larry, do you want to take a consultant approach to that, or somebody
Well,
who say
yeah.
build versus buy?
I spent 6 years convincing people to buy rather than build. So I've got a little bit of a bias here, I guess. But I will say that that even if that's the approach you're going to take, and I do think it's a wise one, you do have to go in eyes wide open. right? I'm into enough conferences and shows where I listen to people's pitches and say, oh, that can't possibly be true that you can do all that. Plus, I think some people make the mistake of thinking that it's completely hands off, even if you buy a solution. But that's not true. I mean, you still need people to help, like vendors like us, understand the data. Where is the data? What exists? What doesn't exist? It's a collaborative effort, but it's never completely hands off. So I think it's wise, at least I believe what I've been saying for the last 6 years, to look at buying solutions, but find one that really addresses the particular business problem you're looking to solve. And that's got all the capabilities you need. Talk to people maybe who've used it, who know about it. Does it really provide the capabilities it says it will? And then don't ever think that you're not going to be involved, because that's a recipe for disaster.
It's not a complete buy and let it just run on its own. Ben,
No,
what do you
no,
want to add?
just
Do you
let
want
it
to
run
add to
on its
that?
own.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say there are some groups that are really good at building things, and they should consider building something. And there are other groups that are really bad at building things, and they should not build things. They should partner. So you got to know what your strengths are, and if you are lacking in one or the other, then you should hire what you need, and then go down the path. And you can hire people that are good at partnering and be a good partner. And I think that that's an important thing to think about too, because it is hard to build it. And if you build something awesome and you've got a great team of developers, and tomorrow all the developers resign, then you're totally screwed. So you just gotta be prepared for all that stuff.
The number of abandoned data warehouse projects that millions of dollars later people realize, or the key person who initiated it, or the tech changed, or something happened that 2 years down the road you realize it just wasn't where I should have started in the first place. Sometimes it's just the person left. That was as simple as that. I did realize, don't make a decision if you have got one person doing it. But Judson, there's a lot of customization that goes into it. I mean, when you build something, you buy something to get it to work. It's rarely ever a plug and play. It's not, more often than not, there are tools that are easier to use, no doubt, but there's more often than not, you got a situation where especially if you've got homegrown system that you're trying to plug them into, then there's a lot of customization. So if it starts getting to the point where somebody else, an expert, the industry general, with the whole idea of platformication, though, I mean, it has gone to more buy solutions out there. So we're up to sort of the last. Judy, by the way, do you want to add something to the build buy? I know, again, you're looking at this. When you think about making software decisions at your size, you're looking, how do you approach that?
Oh, I'm looking at vendors. That's for certain.
Rely on the experts, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of research on a lot of different vendors that, the ones that will talk to credit unions our size, but yeah, it's going to be, vendors and talking to other credit unions to see what works for them.
I think also having, I know it's hard, again, size constraints, generally, but having a strong RFP process or putting the upfront homework into what you exactly need might help a little bit with that,
yes.
identifying the right vendors when you come to it.
Yes,
Just
most
want to
definitely.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm good. No.
Just last couple of minutes, I want to make sure we get to the question. We've got one question, then we'll open it up for any others. The question is, how do you satisfy your regulators' concerns that you understand the black box solution? Judson, you had the same question before, and I know we talked a little about. Do you want to add to that question or say something about it, and then we'll pass it to anybody who wants to speak on it?
Well, I think it's kind of directly relevant to the question that I just asked, a little bit at least, because if you build something from scratch, like if I build a model from scratch, it's really easy for me to tell you what exactly is happening on the back end. There's not much of there's somewhat of a black box, but I've done everything already and I know exactly how it's going to happen. But when I pull something off the shelf, it's a lot harder for me to pick that apart and find out exactly what's happening on the back end. And I was just, obviously there's going to be regulatory pressure to sort of justify, how are you getting these results? What is your AI output? Like what exactly is happening to the data when you pass it in? And I guess just I'm curious as to how people navigate that and how people combat that and make sure that they're taking proactive measures to ensure everything is compliant.
Joel, do you want to, I mean, you're doing projects. How do you understand, how do you address regulators and folks that are asking you, questions
Well,
related to AI models?
Well, because our AI models are mimicked after the manual steps that our existing people on the floor are executing, we're able to speak with our regulators, participate in audits, and validate utilizing use cases and test cases to prove, hey, the answer that the AI generated model generated is equal to the answer that the people on the floor have generated, whether it's the manual process or the AI process. Run a set of use cases through and prove that from an audit perspective, we're getting the same response.
This may not answer the AI question, but on statistical models, when we used to consult with US Bank, David, you mentioned US Bank sometime back too, US Bank, and they had a third-party independent model review team that basically would take data, build their own models, didn't have any of the sort of back-end information, and would validate for stability, validity of the models, make sure things were going. I'm wondering if AI is sort of heading in the same direction, right? Has anybody had an auditor? I know NCUA has now got an analytics sort of arm when they come into they're planning to do that. Terry, go ahead.
We just had our audit. We, like Joel, we explained the process. It's the same process as what it would be if we had an underwriter writing a loan. It's built the same way, and our underwriting was fine with it.
And
Exactly.
And then was fine with it.
Yeah, that's been my approach as well, and it's predictable behavior.
In our tool, one of the things we've got. Go ahead, David.
So our regulator is the FDIC, and then our state regulator is the Utah Department of Financial Institutions. They have a expert out of Washington that comes in and reviews all of our machine learning models annually. And prior to pursuing a PhD, they required me to get a master's degree in data science and machine learning. So, this would resonate, I think, more with Judson. We use third-party model validators, but also having on-site expertise and subject matter experts. So not only do we use a third-party model validator, but it's part of my job to further explain it to the FDIC's quote-unquote expert. I think we tend to get them all kind of confused when we talk about SHAP values and some other ways of explaining machine learning to the point where they eventually give up and toddle away and don't fully understand it.
Ben, what has been your experience? We're out of time. Ben, I'll let you speak and then we'll wrap up, folks. What has been your experience just kind of dealing with it? Thanks, Jason. You want to just give a 1 minute answer to that and sort of dealing with how do you, you're in mute. Go ahead.
Dealing with regulators.
Yeah, just how do you, in terms of sort of having people come in and try to ask questions about something that you've procured.
That's not something that I've ever really had to run up against, Karan, so I don't think I could give a thoughtful answer on it.
That's all right. Works perfectly with the time too. Well, thank you everybody
Yeah.
for joining. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, we'll share the recording. We'll actually have a little summary. So you have that. And then we'll also share the details in the sort of LinkedIn contact, at least, folks, should you want to reach out and talk about things further. Once again, thank you everybody for joining.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.